All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of Book Witches with a B. I am Orja, and this is Colleen.
I'm Colleen.
I don't know why I felt like I wanted to introduce you, but I did.
I mean, you can. Please
Princess
do.
Colleen.
Oh, thank you. I love that, actually.
And we are going to be talking about chapters 36 through 40. Chapters 36 through 40 of A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. That is how I'm saying it for the rest of this forever.
As long as you stick with one, it's fine.
Sticking with Maas.
I actually have no clue.
Yeah, like truly, I just keep forgetting to look it up too. But here's our chapter recap. Doo-doo. All right, time for our chapter recap. So, chapter 36 begins. It is time for the first task. The full moon has arrived. So, some guards show up and drag Feyre into an arena filled with a rowdy crowd. They throw her in front of a platform where Amarantha and Tamlin are seated, surrounded by 6 other High Lords of Prythian, including Rhysand. Tamlin is still very much not looking at Feyre, which is annoying to me if you've heard my opinion on that in past episodes. The adder comes and kind of swoops Feyre up into the air and then drops her into a deep, muddy maze. And the maze is home to a giant worm with a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth called the Middengard worm. So Feyre is basically running around the maze, trying to get away from this worm, and falls into a deep pit within the maze. Also, she also realizes at some point that the worm is actually blind, so it can't see her, and it relies on its sense of smell. So what she does is she decides to cover herself in mud so that the worm can no longer smell her. And then she uses bones that are littering the pit, bones from past meals of the worm, no doubt, to build a ladder to climb herself out of the pit. Once she's out of the pit, she realizes that she's got a little bit of a plan. So she jumps back into the pit, and then she fills the bottom of the pit with jagged bones facing point up, and then she climbs back out. Now that she's covered in mud, the worm can't see her, so she cuts her hand to let some of her blood come through, and she's kind of running around trying to lure the worm out. Not knowing exactly where it is, she's saved once again by Lucien, who calls out that the worm's about to burst forth through a wall at her, and so Feyre gets a head start, and she lures the worm to the edge of the pit and then stops short, and the worm just barrels on in and gets killed by the bones of its former victims, and it's very satisfying. So then Feyre climbs out and she kind of throws a bone, a muddy bone, at Amarantha's feet and gets mud all over Amarantha's dress, which I think is like peak Feyre. Go Feyre. Amarantha tells Feyre that the entire court bet against her winning except for one person. And then Feyre is returned to her cell, and she realizes that her arm's badly broken and the mud that she covered herself in is really dirty. So chapter 37 opens with Feyre in the cell, kind of starting to worry that the wound in her hand and her arm are getting infected. She starts feeling really hazy, and she knows that the fever is taking her. As she's wondering how she's going to get out of this scrape, Rhysand appears in her cell, and he lets Feyre know at this point in time that he is the one person who bet on her to win the trial. And he's kind of like cajoling her. He's like, "You made me a lot of money." He offers to heal Feyre's arm if she will agree to spend 2 weeks every month with him at the Night Court. This seems really random. We know that Rhysand really likes to tease Tamlin. 2 weeks is a long time, though, and Feyre has been warned against making deals with fairies. Even though she didn't listen before, this time she listens to Alice's advice and is like, absolutely not. Then Rhysand says, "Are you hoping for Lucien to come and heal you again? Don't lie, I know he did that. He's being punished for helping you in the trial. I wouldn't bet on him coming anytime soon. I would worry that you're going to die from infection before he gets the chance to come and save you again." Farrah's holding out a little bit longer, but then she realizes she's desperate. She says, Rhysand, wait. And then she tries to bargain with him. She says, I'll spend 5 days a month with you at the Night Court. And he says, how about a week? And she knows that this might be her last chance to make it out alive. She defeated the worm. She can't be brought down by an infection. That would be sad. And so she agrees on 1 week. Rhys heals her arm, and he also takes away the mud and the dirt that's on her. She lifts her arm to find it now covered in a black tattoo. It's described as like swirly tattoo from her fingertips all the way up to her elbow, and there is an eye in the middle of her palm. Farrah accuses Rhysand of tricking her, which is probably not too far off base here, and he taunts her and says, oh no, why are you so upset? Are you afraid to tell Tam Tam? Chapter 38 opens, and we see some of the household chores and tasks that Amarantha decides to task Farrah with. One day, she is told to scrub a white marble hallway with a bucket of dirty water, and if it's not cleaned by the time the cards come back, they're gonna roast her alive. While she's trying to figure out how to get the marble clean, the Lady of the Autumn Court, Lucian's mother, comes in and changes the bucket of water into clean water and thanks Farrah basically for saving her son and sticking up for her son. So Farrah's first household chore is completed with no roasting alive. Yay. The next day, the guards give Farrah the task of cleaning out lentils out of the ash of a fireplace of a opulent bedroom. And they tell her that if she fails, the bedroom's occupant, is going to peel off her skin. So, lovely imagery there. While she's trying to get the lentils out, Rhysand appears, and he asks why she's digging in his fireplace. So we now know that she's been taken to Rhysand's room to clean out his fireplace. She tells him what the deal is, and he's like, you can stop doing that. And then he feels a little chatty, so he tells her that even though he's so powerful, and he's clearly so much more powerful than any of the other High Lords, this is still only a scrap left of his magic. He also tells Farrah that all High Lords can shapeshift, and he reveals to her that he has wings, and they kind of like appear, and they're, I guess, kind of described as like humongous, large, leathery, bat-like wings. Farrah asks Rhysand if he knows the answer to the infamous riddle, which, stop being so literal about it, Farrah, it's fine. And he says that Amarantha has forbidden anyone from helping her, but because she had the nerve to ask for help, he finishes her tasks off for her with magic. When the guards come back to take her, he uses his mind magic to order the guards not to touch Farrah. Like, do not touch her, do not hit her, no beating up, no touching her. And he says, don't give her any more chores to do. She's done with that. Chapter 39 opens with Farrah alone in her cell. Again, she's kind of like she has nothing to do now, nothing to pass the time until the next task. And so she's thinking about the riddle, and she's looking at the tattoo, and she's studying the eye on her palm. After 4 days of kind of just absolute boredom, Rhysand sends 2 high fae women to fetch Farrah, wash her, apply makeup and body paint, and dress her in sheer white fabric. When I say sheer white fabric, I mean it's basically like a piece of cloth covering up all the goods, and it's sheer, so very scantily clad, and she's got body paint all over her. Interesting point about these 2 women, or females, they're high fae of some sort, but they seem to be like in the shadows. They don't really talk very much. They're twins. Once she's all done up, Rhysand appears to take Farrah to a midsummer celebration. He explains that the dress and the body paint are so that he'll know if anyone touches her. He'll see evidence of it in the paint that's smeared. Similar to how Farrah saw the paint being smeared on Tamlin's body after Cal and Mai. Fun little callback there. In the throne room, Rhysand tells Amarantha that he and Farrah have made a deal for her to spend 1 week every month with him. He's doing it to kind of goad Tamlin on. We know that they don't like each other. Tamlin doesn't react, but Farrah does notice that his knuckles, he's like white knuckle grip on the arms of his throne. Rhysand offers Farrah wine, remembering Alice's advice to never drink fairy wine. She says no at first, but then she kind of kind of like just gives in and starts drinking the wine. She wakes up the next day. She's sick. She vomits. It takes her a long time to recover. Lucian arrives at dinner time and he tells her that she was a fool for making a deal with him. He's like, yeah, he made you basically dance for all of the fairies all night. What were you doing? What are you doing making a deal with this guy? He's evil. And Farah kind of hits him back with like I was about to die and I didn't know if you were coming for me. And Lucian is like, yeah, I was being punished for helping you. They have a bonding moment. They thank each other for saving each other's lives. Um, he also assures her Tamlin's not reacting to anything because he doesn't want to give Amarantha anything else to use against Farah, which I think is a very flimsy excuse, but that's fine. So then we kind of have time pass a little bit until the second task. Every night, Farah is taken by the two shadow females and painted and dressed very scantily to go to the throne room at Rizan's side. She drinks the wine and she acts like a fool and dances every night and she sleeps the days off. And she thinks about the riddle because she's beginning to realize that that's probably her best bet in rescuing herself and Tamlin and everyone else. Also during this time, Farah is called to the throne room, and it looks like there's a bunch of people assembled. Amarantha orders Rizan to enter the mind of a high fae who conspired to escape from under the mountain, and she tells Rizan to shatter his mind. And Farah watches in a quite terrifying moment as Rizan simply makes a fist, and the high fae is gone. Which brings us to chapter 40. The night of the second task, Farah stands before Amarantha and Tamlin in a cavern smaller than the throne room. The floor under Farah lowers her into a pit surrounded by 3 walls and an iron grate, and Lucian is chained on the floor on the other side of the iron grate from her. 2 spiked grates overhead, one over Farah and one over Lucian, start coming down slowly from the ceiling. And one of the 3 walls on Farah's side is covered in writing. And basically, Amarantha is like, choose the right lever, solve the puzzle, and choose the right lever to win this second task. Now, we don't know if Amarantha knows that Farah can't read. Farah is panicking. She's been practicing, but she's looking at the wall and she can't make out anything on the wall. And Lucian starts panicking, and the grates are getting closer and closer. They're about to die, and so she just, with blind, panicked logic, she reaches for the second lever. I think it's important to note here her logic was 1 can't be good because 1 is alone. 2 has to be good because it's me and Tamlin forever. And she doesn't even think about 3, which is like, honestly, at that point, how else would you solve the task? So, kudos for trying, Farah. As she's reaching towards the second lever, she gets a sharp pain in her arm and she moves away. And then she reaches for it again just to test it out and she gets a sharp pain again. And so then she reaches for the third lever because she's just absolutely not one. She reaches for the third lever and there's no pain there. And it's literally the last moment. Lucian is like, Farah, just pick one. We're gonna die anyways. And so she pulls the third lever and the grates stop advancing and Farah falls to her knees and is about to start crying. And then hears a voice, a sensual voice, might I add, in her head telling her not to cry and face Amarantha, hold her head high and walk out of there. Don't let Amarantha see you break. Farah takes comfort and strength from that voice and stands up and walks out of the room with her head high. And by the time she gets back to her cell, she basically is just like done. She collapses and she's sobbing and she's like done, which honestly fair. Rizan appears in her cell and is like, just to try to get her to stop crying, according to him, licks a tear off her face, which, what is it with fairies and licking things? Anyways, it stops her crying, and then he, I think a little bit to kind of like get her a little bit farther away from the edge that she was kind of leaning over, starts, joking around with her, and he's like, Amarantha didn't know, but I guess you can't read, and he's like, kind of making fun, but not really. She can tell that he's not doing it in a mean way. And then he says, "Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. I won't tell anyone." And he leaves. And later that day, Farah is cursing the palm, the eye on her palm. She has a sneaking suspicion that Rhysand is connected to her in some way, so she's like cursing it and whatever. But she also gives in and realizes like Rhysand saved her life. So Rhysand's just going around being an evil, morally black guy, but saving this poor, malnutritioned human teenage girl. So that's intriguing. And that is where we end our chapter recap. And we're back. Welcome back, everyone. Let's do section superlatives. Drama queen of the section.
Drama queen of the section. Oh gosh.
I feel like it has to be Amarantha.
I want to say Lucian. Oh, actually, valid. Yeah, no, that's true. I was gonna say Lucian because he is a dramatic boy, but I would say Amarantha is 100% drama queen of the section.
She's just like, I mean, this is her party, and she can torture people if she wants to.
It is. I do think it's interesting that she thinks of this as like one big long party. She's just like, we're just having a big party.
It's for like 3 months.
Yeah, we're on a bender. It's fine.
It's fine. I guess Lucian does get an honorable mention though. Like, what did he just truly not understanding that humans can die from infection? Like, truly not understanding.
Yeah, no, he has zero context about humans at all, which makes sense being in the Autumn Court, and like, it doesn't really seem like the Spring Court had a lot of interactions with humans. But yeah, no, he's not the brightest.
Yeah. Berating Farah for making another deal to save her life. Anyways, it's fine. It's fine. Craziest thing to happen in these chapters. There's a lot of crazy things that happen.
When I read it the first time, for me, it was the worm. I don't know if it's worm or werver, whatever the thing that she fights.
The worm, the Midgard worm.
See, but it's not a worm like how we think of a worm.
No, it's like a dune worm.
It's like something different. Yeah.
So yeah, this is like a dune worm. There's a lot of really funny memes out there where it's just like the worm from SpongeBob. In that episode where they're like, the worm is coming.
That's all I
just like this cute, like, giant worm.
That's all I can think of is like a SpongeBob worm. That's what I pictured the whole time, and my brain was having a hard time computing that she was in danger when I read this section.
Yeah.
Like, I could tell that she was, but I like couldn't compute what that meant in my brain.
Yeah, and then, but no, folks, this is not the SpongeBob worm. This is a giant worm-like thing with like hundreds of rows of like razor sharp teeth. It's a scary, scary worm, and it's like one of the dune worms.
Yes, it is. Big scary worm. So I think, yeah, that part to me, I think I was just like, I know I've said this multiple times. That was the point where I was like, what happened to Beauty and the Beast? Where did it go? That was that point for me. I was like, how do we get here?
Truly.
What is happening?
Even, yeah, because like even the part where she was doing like the riddles and whatever, I was still like, okay, loosely Beauty and the Beast, whatever. But this is just like,
we're out the window now.
Yep. Off the rails.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's pretty crazy. I think just like that's probably the craziest thing to happen. After that, even though the second task was extremely deadly because Farah can't read, it just felt a little anticlimactic. It felt like Amarantha was like too busy partying and was like, oh shoot, I have to put together a dangerous task. And then she remembered that Farah still hasn't solved her first riddle. So, and I don't think we ever find out what this second task riddle is.
I don't think so either, because since she can't read it and this book is only in her perspective or point of view, I don't think we ever do.
I don't think we ever,
because no one ever reads it out loud.
Interesting. I would like to add a third superlative.
Yes, ma'am.
To our chapter, and that is snarkiest thing to happen. Snarkiest thing to happen.
Okay.
And for me, that is Farah defeating the worm and then climbing out of the pit, drenched in worm excrement mud, and throwing a dirty bone at Amarantha and getting mud all over her dress.
No, I agree 100% because she knew that would make Amarantha so upset. So upset.
Yeah.
Wasn't she wearing a white dress?
She was wearing a white dress, yeah. So like just like this
Yeah.
beautiful, pristine white dress, and then it's just like really gross smelling mud all over it. So hats off to Farah.
Incredible. She's like, if I have to smell, you have to smell.
Exactly. All right. I think. Do you have anything else that you want to superlatize?
Mm-mm. No, I do think Reese could also be pretty good for a drama queen category because I think he just is a drama queen, but that's just his personality. That's like not a superlative.
It
So,
is. Honestly, he is just peak drama queen always.
especially like in this section, like in this chunk of like the last half of the book, I just over the top all the time.
All the time. All right, let's move on to our deep dive discussion.
Yay.
Deep dive discussion. For those of you who don't know me, I like to sing. I actually do sing. I like sort of play the ukulele and I like to sing and I sing all the time. But lately I have been just singing to myself out loud. So that's
It's incredible. I love
I
that.
don't
I
know
do
if
it too.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just like I've stopped caring completely what anyone thinks of me or like what less stressed or whatever it is. But yeah, I just tend to like sing
Could
now.
be less stress.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love that. I mean, I like singing. You know this. This is
Yeah.
fine. But
Singing's fun. Okay, so deep dive discussion. I think important to note because I forgot their names when I was doing the chapter recap. The two shadowy high fae maids of Rhysand's. They're
maybe
twins,
spies. We don't know.
maybe spies. They're twins. They're described as like they can like materialize through shadows, so they like materialize and walk through the bars of Farrah's cell when they come to get her, and we see a little bit more of their like shadowy powers. We'll see it in the next episode, but their names are Nuella and Caradwyn,
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
and I am so intrigued by them. I want to know more.
Yeah, I want to be able to shadow puff through things.
Hmm.
Like, how does that work? How do you just casually do that?
Right. Do they turn into shadow? Are they shadow fae? Is that a thing? Are they shadow fae?
I don't know. Are they described as like wraiths? Is that what they're described
Yes.
as?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so.
So I don't know if that's like a type of, which is like typically associated with death, which is interesting to me from like a mythological standpoint.
Yeah.
But
Although, if we're going off of that, the Night Court is apparently evil. And death
makes sense.
does tend to go hand in hand with evil, so um, it would make sense that Wraith would be a term applied to them if they work for Rhysand. I still, I know we've had this discussion before where it's like, how do we go from Rhys being the evil monster that he is to
Mm-hmm.
saving Farah? 4 times now. It brings it up to 4 times in this episode.
He did. He did do it 4 times. I will also say, he is having like the whole dancing sequence for me is a tough pill to swallow.
Oh, yeah.
As a general, that whole I remember reading that the first time and being like, absolutely not,
It's
absolutely not.
rough.
I'm still that way. Like, to, no.
Oh, it's very bad. We do get like a justification for it. There's a lot of discussions out there about how the justification is simply not enough. I think I think if we weren't in a magical realm where everything was life and death, I would tend to agree. I would have liked a little bit more.
Yeah.
I would like to get a little
I
bit more for the character's redemption arc. Not saying that there is one. Whoops, but whatever.
oopsies.
I mean, he's in her life at least in, the tattoo
Her bargain,
yeah, her
her little
bargain.
tattooed hand bargain, which we can talk about too. But that was just, I don't know. This is very. I remember. I think of well, I mean, well, we can't talk about that now because we're not doing a redemption thing yet. But character-wise, just so everyone knows who I pictured, it's just Damon Salvatore from the Vampire
Yes,
Diaries.
and Damon Salvatore does a lot of bad things, but I still love him so much.
I do too. So,
I'm
if you can't tell,
rewatching The
we like
Vampire
these.
Diaries right now, and when I tell you that Damon does so many horrible things, like,
The first season, Damon is horrific.
so
He's
bad.
particularly to Caroline. Like, I remember thinking when I watched it the first time, I was like, how could I ever forgive Damon? I folded immediately.
I mean, yes.
so,
As soon as
so
he did
fast.
one good thing for Elena, I was like, I love him.
I love him so much, and I'm like, I forgot all of this shit. Also, I think Caroline does. I think everyone just like pretends like the first season didn't really happen,
Yeah,
outside of the fact that Stefan and Elena dated. That's the only thing
right.
that
That's
really
the only thing
happened.
that really happened. I also think, like, I mean, there's a lot of similarities between Rhysand and Damon. Just in terms of like, I mean, we don't know what's gonna happen with Rhysand. He saved Farah 4 times. He clearly likes her, is intrigued by her, doesn't want her to die. Perhaps is a little bit more captive of Amarantha than he likes to let on if he's doing all of these nice things for her.
Yeah.
Um, but I think a parallel is like he dresses her in literally like a cloth that barely covers the goods, and paints her entire body and whatever. And she's got this, she like hates him for it, but he saved her life multiple times. And she's like, at least if I can't remember anything I do these nights that I'm guzzling down fairy wine, at least I know that
Mhm.
nothing has happened to me because I can see where the paint is smudged on my body, right? So he's taken
Yeah.
away her choice in so many things,
Mhm.
but she knows what's happened to her in some way, shape, or form. Not taking into account the fact that magic is a thing, so those could also be faked. But
Yes.
bringing this point home is like Damon, um, like force feeds Elena his blood so that she doesn't die. And she's like, I would rather die than be a vampire. She says it multiple times, and I think it actually happens multiple times where he's like, I don't care. I would rather you not die than
Yeah.
never see you again. And it's like, that's not good. It's really
Yeah.
bad, in fact.
I don't know if Reese will ever get like a like I don't know full redemption arc necessarily because he does seem like he's still definitely evil in some sort of way,
He
but he's
is
not
a
like
bad man who does bad things.
yes, but he's not like evil incarnate that I think maybe that Tamlin and Lucian portrayed to her.
Yes.
He feels I know he's not human because they're not humans, but it feels like a human. There's something there.
Yeah. Well, he's not the big bad, quote unquote big bad of the book. You know, that's
That's true.
Amarantha.
That is
There's
Amaranth.
Amarantha evil, and then there's like Rhysand, who is this kind of more, he is morally ambiguous. I'll say
Mhm.
I can justify that, you know, we've talked about how I don't agree with the whole morally gray thing. I think he's morally
Yeah.
ambiguous. He has very hard lines in the sand that he will not cross. But then he'll just, you know, shatter someone's mind who tried to escape from under the mountain just like that, you know?
Yeah, and doesn't really seem to have any guilt or like remorse for that, which is interesting
Yeah.
to think about. But I can't decide like. I guess I kind of know his motivation. He definitely does not like not being the most powerful in the room. Like he's
Hmm.
very used to that. He's very used to being in control, and like Amarantha taking that away is definitely like I can't decide if he. Well, I mean, I guess if she cursed him, that is kind of an interesting thought process, right? Because we're supposed to believe
Hmm.
that he's like this evil incarnate, hates everything,
That he
but very
enjoys being
clearly
her lover and as well.
yeah, all of these things, but Amarantha still cursed him, and I don't know if she would have done that if he wouldn't have resisted at least 50 years ago.
Right.
So there was some sort of resistance at some point, but I don't know if it's just because he wanted to hold the power for himself, he didn't want to give it up,
Right.
or
Or if she was like threatened by his power and so had to leash him in some way.
yeah, I can't really figure out like what where that is
Yeah.
necessarily. There seems
There
to be
is a
something at play
hidden
there.
power dynamic, power struggle there.
Yeah, there just very clearly seems to be a disconnect, I think, maybe between what Tamlin has told us Rhys is versus what we've seen of him, I think.
Yes, I
Like,
agree.
if Rhys was what Tamlin explained, I think he would have joined up with Amarantha without hesitation.
Agreed.
So,
I mean, yeah, I think so. Um, Speaking of people who save Sarah's little human butt, we meet Lucian's mom very briefly.
yes, the
The
lady
the
of the Autumn
lady
Court.
of the Autumn Court,
Hmm.
who clearly cares for her son because
Yeah.
she helps Farah out. Um, I feel like this part is like almost a little Cinderella-y, where it's like
It
all of a
is.
sudden Farah has to do like household tasks that are impossible.
I'm pretty certain like the lintels in the fireplace is like a direct thing from the original Cinderella fairy
I
tale
think so too, and I think the mopping up of the floor with dirty water might be too. I could be
as well.
wrong, but
Okay.
I
I
think,
remember the lentils because that sounded like nightmarish to me.
yeah,
So I remembered.
sounds
But
awful.
yeah.
But yeah, so we get a little cameo from her. She seems lovely. She seems like possibly the only not horrific person from the Autumn Court, other than
It
Lucian.
well, it makes it kind of make more sense maybe why Lucian is the way that he is because if he's the seventh son,
Yeah,
like he probably really wasn't around his father all that much. It makes me think he was around his mom a significant amount more for him to turn out the way that he is.
yeah, I
He is
think
not a
so
perfect
too.
boy, God bless him,
No.
but I think he has some of that. Compassion isn't quite the right word, but maybe from her.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Or at least honor.
Yeah, there's like a yeah, honor is probably a better way to, but like whatever that fairy, because like I think it's hard to describe them using human emotions because they're not human. Like I
Hmm.
think both Rhys and Lucian, probably even more than Tamlin, are very fey.
Yes, I
They're
agree.
just they're very fey. Like I think humans kind of human. Lord have mercy. Tamlin is almost written a little more humanistically. I think because Feyre is viewing him more humanly, but I think she definitely still views Lucian and Rhys as very fey.
Yeah. Yeah, their emotions are not exactly relatable. Um,
Yeah.
but Lucian does. So Lucian sticks his neck out for Feyre again,
Yeah.
and saves her from the worm. And then poor Lucian is then held accountable. And that's the reason why he is about to die right alongside Feyre in the second task.
I think Lucian is like the definition of like reckless love, maybe almost. Like I don't think he ever has a plan. He just kind of like goes in and does it. Like he's not a planner, he's not a schemer. He just kind of
He just does it.
yeah, which I don't know how else he was supposed to help her. Think it I think he did a good thing, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you can definitely I mean, I'm sure he knew there would be consequences, but I don't know if he knew like how severely or how much.
Right. I don't think he could have possibly foreseen. Although Amarantha did take his eye for something.
That's true. Maybe he just doesn't care anymore. And maybe that's where that recklessness comes from. I don't know. He just has kind of like a reckless
A
like
reckless streak.
I just don't think he has anything to lose. Like I think in his mind he's lost Tamlin at this point, truly.
Hmm.
And he's like, honestly, if my life's forfeit, could care less at this point. Like,
That's true. And there is like, so we see the fairies under the mountain, and like half of them, I would say half of them are reveling in the evil and the debauchery and all of that stuff. But then you have the instance of one of them trying to escape.
yeah.
So like they're all being held captive under this mountain.
Hmm.
So it would make sense that Lucian's like, well, either she's gonna we're probably all gonna die anyways, because there's no way this human is gonna actually defeat Amarantha, so I might as well save her.
Yeah. I agree. I saw someone else that talked about it, and I think I sent this to you, but they were like, they think that Lucian, not, I think he cares for Feyre in his own way, and I think we definitely see that, and I do think he cares for her. but someone talking about that part of the reason he did what he did at this point was because he didn't want Tamlin to have to go through the same thing that he went through
Yes.
when, what was her, Justinia? His like
Yeah.
lower Fae lover was killed in front of him, because it's not necessarily all that far off. It's someone who's definitely a lot weaker, doesn't have the same power dynamic, being hurt by a redhead. It's actually quite close.
It is the exact
Actually,
same thing, actually.
it's the same thing.
So,
Yes, yeah, and he knows what that's like. And like, regardless of what we think of Tamlin, in Lucian's mind, he's like his, savior and friend and all of these things, and so he's trying to do his best to protect his like
yeah,
person.
his person. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point.
I wish that was
Let's
original. It was
see.
not, but I thought that was a good point that I
No,
saw
it's a
that
great
was interesting.
point.
Yeah,
Let's talk about this whole thing about bargains being marked in tattoos.
I I love it. I think that's so fascinating, but it is a really weird thing where you can't make secret bargains that way. Everything is so public with them, which
hmm
is kind of wild.
It's wild, but it's very fey.
It is very fake. Like, they're very upfront about themselves and things, but like, from, I don't know, like, they seem so shadowy and like secretive, I guess, particularly in the night court,
hmm
that like having tattoos and not allowing Bergens to be private is just such an interesting tidbit.
I have two questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we think that it really truly is how it is in the night court, or do we think that Rhysand just said that to justify so he could annoy Tamlin?
Oh, I 100% think it's just to annoy Tamlin. I'm gonna be honest. It feels like something, like, I think so, because that seems to be like a, clearly there's something there.
Something
Like,
happening.
clearly he made him bow down in front of him. He clearly likes to mess with him.
hmm
Rhys feels cheeky to
Yeah,
me. Like, he's kind of like a cheeky person,
he
and I think
is.
he would think that's like,
Funny,
funny isn't the right word, but kind of
amusing.
amusing, which is very Faye.
Yeah.
Like, this like toying with things of just being like, "Tee, he's gonna know." He says that, doesn't he? Right? He's like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
he's
you're."
like, "Oh, how are you gonna tell? Well, I guess Tamlin's gonna know that I saved your life now. How are you gonna tell him what you gave me for it?"
Yeah, I just, I remember feeling sad for her in that moment, because like, she's so desperate. Like, she had no choice
She truly
but
had
to
no
accept
choice.
this.
My
And
sorry, go ahead.
well, like, trying to explain, like, I can't imagine explaining to this person that I have truly traveled across the wall and thrown myself and fought a whole worm for,
A whole worm.
that, by the way, your mortal enemy. Yeah,
He gets 1 week of my time every month. Whoops.
every month. Every month. It's fine.
My second question is, if this is truly the way that bargains are marked, I guess I had three questions. Is it just in the night court, or is it in Prithian? Like, is that Fey magic, or is that specifically night court magic? Because it's like described as very night courty, black, inky, you know.
Mm-hmm. I don't,
She didn't
the
get
only,
any tattoos when she made the deal with Amarantha.
that was my thought, but Amarantha's not from Prithian, so I don't know if
Ooh.
her magic is different.
Oh, that's so true.
So she's Hybern, so I don't know
Mhm.
if, like, they seem all sorts of backwards. So it's hard to tell. They strike me as, honestly, if I was going to say a place like brands you when you make a bargain, it would make more sense that it was Hybern and less of Prithian,
Yeah.
almost. That just seems to be kind of their mode. But I don't know. It seems to me like a very, I think it's just a Reese thing. I'm gonna be honest. I think he just likes it. I
Maybe.
think he's just like, I think this is fun. I like it. I like the tattoos. And it's also like a power dynamic thing of being like, specifically, if you make a bargain with me, everyone's gonna know. It's also a protection thing, and maybe a little bit as well. If he's such a powerful person,
Yeah.
you have kind of like that extra
Right,
layer of
like
protection. Like,
she has made a bargain with me. Don't mess with
yes,
her, sort of thing.
yes, or just with anybody. Like, I mean, if
hmm
he says it's like a typical bargaining thing that he makes with his people, it's like a particular He almost seems like he views it as like an honor, like a badge of honor,
Mhm.
like a prideful thing. So maybe
Yeah.
culturally, it's like
Also very
a
Faye.
prideful. Very Faye.
Hmm.
He's so
He's so Faye.
which I love. I've
Me
actually been like
too.
waiting for us to get to that like really Faye, which is I think why I love Lucian so much. Like I've been like wanting to get to this like Faye kind of.
Hmm.
This was the point in the book that I decided to not stop reading this book.
Yeah. It was the Middengard worm for me. I was like,
Yes, yeah.
what?
I remember like it being really slow and being like everyone says this is good. I would not have read this book if people did not tell me it was good. I would have been bored in the first half.
I was
Not that
really
it's not.
bored in life, so I just pushed through.
I can't remember if I think I had read this before I met you, but I don't remember. I think so. But I remember just being like, gosh, everyone said this is good. I got to get through it. And then we got to the worm, and I was like, what is happening? Like, that was where I was like, well, now I have to see what's going on. And then I also knew there
Yeah.
was more books and things, but
So
yeah.
my third question is, obviously this is not a bargain that's going to end because it he didn't specify an ending to it. But what
Oh, that
about
is true.
for bargains that do have an end, like bargains that have a I do this for you, you do this for me, and when both of those things are done, does the tattoo disappear or is it just on there forever?
Well, so I guess it depends on like what kind of tattoo, because like in theory, tattoos are permanent,
Yep.
right? Like wait, but I guess it depends on what you think of. Some people call henna tattoos, so that could be
I
like a version of
know.
that. I don't think it is, but you know, people call them that. So there's that.
Yep. Side note, okay, and I think I do want to keep this in because I just think it's a really funny story. So when I got married, I had, I had henna all like I had bridal henna, so it was like all the way up to my elbows on my arms, and I had it on
Mhm.
my feet too. And henna does fade. Um,
Yes.
and I was at work about a week and a half after my wedding. I was at work and I ran into this lady in the hall who she always said the most unhinged things. Like, I don't know what was wrong with this person, but she always said the most unhinged things. And we were talking and she was like, "Oh, I love your tattoos." And she pointed to my feet. And some people call henna tattoos tattoos.
They
Whatever. I,
do.
I call it mehndi. Okay, that's the Indian word. Uh, I invite the rest of the world to also call it mehndi, or if your culture uses henna, call it whatever you want. Anyways, so she was like, "I like your tattoos," and I was like, "Oh, thanks. Yeah." I was like, "I think it looks so cool." And then I was joking because one of our other coworkers was standing by me, and I turned to her and I was like, "Oh, I should just get it like actually permanently tattooed over, because the design looks so cool." And we were chuckling, and this lady looks and then she goes, "That's not real?" And I was like, what gave it away? The extremely faded orange color? The fact that I called it henna and it's also all over my arms? Like, I don't know, it's not. And I was kind of at a loss, and luckily the other coworker was like, "No, it's henna, it's temporary. Have you never heard of that?" And I was like, "Bless you for saying that," because I have not run into someone who doesn't know what henna is in years at this point.
Yeah, I
Years.
you I remember the story. This is when we worked together.
Yep.
I was surprised. I actually would have assumed she would have assumed the other way around since you are
Right,
Indian.
I'm
I would have assumed
Indian.
she would have assumed
That it was henna.
anything.
I
Yeah,
know. And like
that
when
seems to be like a
back in like
like an
the
assumption.
90s, even early 2000s, there were definitely henna wasn't like all the rage. It wasn't so popular. There was a lack of social media. So like it wasn't so
Sure.
globally accessible. But like truly in the past like decade, maybe even 15 years, I have not had someone ask me what it was on my hands. Like
I mean,
until
I'm
that
from
moment.
middle of nowhere, backwoods. I knew what it was to give some context. Like, and I've known for a long time. Like that was things
Um
that they had at like fairs and stuff to put on
yeah,
like here.
Renaissance fairs
Like
do it, all
yeah,
sorts of things. So
yeah.
anyways, that's my fun little henna story.
Where I was trying to get at that with in terms of like the tattoo thing, because Sarah is white, so
Mhm.
she may or may not consider henna a tattoo, depending. I didn't know if it was like as the bond faded, it faded. If it like the
Ooh.
color shows the strength, or like over time, like you're saying, it fades, or
Mhm.
if it's like a, which I mean, technically tattoos in general do fade over time,
They do.
regardless. But or if it's like it's there and that's your life
Yeah,
now.
I don't know. Very curious about that.
I am also curious about. Also, like, what if you don't like the design?
Right. Because
Because like she didn't get to pick it.
she didn't get to pick
It's
it, it
also
just
so
appeared.
big. Like I feel like that's
Also,
such a small bargain
like,
for something.
for her, right, it is a very small bargain for it to be all like bridal henna style all the way up her arm. But
Uh-huh.
the eye in the middle of her palm, I would be very mad if that happened to me because that's freaky.
I think I would just like walk around
Yeah, like
with it.
never
Be like, does this
it's
work as
like
a
it
functional
doesn't,
eye?
yeah.
Like,
Um,
what's that? Oh gosh, it's from Pan's Labyrinth, where like the character has the eyeballs that come out of its hand. You know what I'm talking about?
oh, yeah, I actually
I think
haven't
it's
seen that
Pan's
movie,
Labyrinth.
but I know what you're talking about.
I also haven't seen that movie, but I know.
Yeah,
Yes, that's all I could think of with that.
yeah.
Anywho, which we've also like figured out that like somehow he's communicating with her
Yeah,
through.
through the tattoo bargain.
So there is a thing in this series where Sarah just says it's a rude gesture.
Yeah.
There's so many theories as to what that means
I
because like
haven't seen
culturally
any
that's
of them.
different
Yeah.
across places. So I always assume American middle finger
Mhm.
situation, to be honest with you. But
Honestly,
like
same.
I really sometimes I do like to think it's like the British version of flipping somebody off because I think that's funnier. And
That
also
just
this
like the
thing,
backwards peace sign.
I think you have to do like a little like up motion. I probably
Oh, sorry
shouldn't
for
do it.
flipping you off just now. Sorry, everyone.
I'm probably not doing it right, so that's fine. I think it's that way. I don't know. I'm American, so therefore
I like
would
to
not
think
know.
it's Shakespeare's where they just bite their thumbs at each other.
Bite their thumb at you. That's another one that people have seen. This will come up like in like the end of the second book. There's like a more of an intense situation that there's some gesturing that we have to. There's a lot of theories around
Oh,
that
yeah,
particular one.
that.
Yes, I think that's the second end of the second book.
Hmm.
Um, but anywho, I would be doing a lot of rude things. Also, like we don't. Do we know? Is it on her right or left hand?
I have no idea. I need to look that up now.
I don't remember because so like going to the bathroom, right?
Hmm.
Concerning. You'd have to like think about a lot of things. Like there's just so many things that you would have to think about, like knowing that he can. It would just feel like a lot. It would be a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yes, absolutely. Left arm. I lifted my left arm.
Okay, smart. Honestly,
Since I have this here, I feel like I should read this excerpt. The darkness consuming him paused. For Tamlin I would sell my soul. I would give up everything I had for him to be free. Wait, I repeated. The darkness vanished, leaving Rhysand in his solid form as he grinned. Yes? I raised my chin as high as I could manage. Just 2 weeks? Just 2 weeks, he purred and knelt before me. 2 teensy tiny weeks with me every month is all I ask. Why, and what are to be the terms? I said, fighting past the dizziness. And then I'm going to skip where she's justifying making this bargain. And she says, I couldn't think entirely of the enormity of what I was about to give, or else I might refuse again. I met Rhysand's eyes. 5 days. You're going to bargain? Rhysand laughed under his breath. 10 days. I held his stare with all my strength. A week. Rhysand was silent for a long moment, his eyes traveling across my body and my face before he murmured, a week it is. Then it's a deal, I said. A metallic taste filled my mouth as magic stirred between us. His smile became a bit wild, and before I could brace myself, he grabbed my arm. There was a blinding, quick pain, and my scream sounded in my ears as bone and flesh were shattered. Blood rushed out of me, and then it was gone, and she lifted her left arm, and there was the tattoo.
ooh.
So, this,
So I guess maybe that answers our question of if all magic tastes metallic, unless she's currently under a glamour that we don't know of.
That's true. Also, the whole like blinding flash of pain, I don't think I ever processed that before. And I want it's
Neither.
probably because it's a fairy bargain that's being put onto her human body is I think what how I read that.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess if she describes it as a tattoo, I mean, tattoos are mildly
Painful.
painful. And so if it was just like one, it would be like getting all of the needle all at once.
All at once. Ooh, that would be painful.
That would be painful, especially because like if it was like on that inner part, I feel like that would. Well, you have one there. I feel like it wouldn't be comfortable.
So yeah, all of that. Do we want to just talk really quickly about this whole thing with fairies licking Farah?
So Reese licks her in this section, right? But we also talked about the whole like weird. Is this related to healing again? Is she
Right.
crying? And
Where
this
he
is when
like
he.
kisses her palm. Tamlin kisses her palm.
Yeah. But when he's licking up the tears, is this
Oh.
also when he's making the bargain to heal her again?
No, this is later
No.
after the second task when she is
Okay.
like sobbing in her cell. And he kind
Yes,
of
and he's
just
trying to get
comes
her to
there to
stop.
check on her, I think, and she's
Which is cute.
crying, and he licks a tear off of her face and says, just wondered what it tasted like. And he's like, I did it to get you to stop crying. And she's like, well, it worked.
Yeah, valid. If someone licked a tear away on my face, I'd be
I
like,
would stop crying
ew.
immediately.
Yeah, I would too. Or cry harder, depending on the situation. Yeah, there is a weird obsession. Not that. Maybe this is where that whole thing of like fairies eat humans comes in. Because like they have no concept of like humanity and what humans are and how they're like. So maybe this is just like a thing they do.
Maybe. It
I don't
could be.
know.
It is
This
very
is
Fae.
really.
It's very other.
It is. It seems like it's like they're like a specimen. They're just like, what are you like?
Yeah.
Can I lick you? I think Tamlin's was supposed to be kind of seductive, to be
It
honest with
definitely
you.
was. I don't think Rezan's was supposed to be seductive. I think he
I
was
know.
like absolutely no seduction there. I think he was just like,
No.
how can I get this thing to stop crying? Oh, I wonder what her tears taste like.
I think he was truly trying to think of the most absurd thing that he could do that wouldn't necessarily harm her.
Yeah,
And I think he tried talking to her for a while,
I
and
think
like the
so.
bantery talking just wasn't working, and that typically did with her, I think,
hmm
at this point. So he was just like,
He's like trying to goad her out, like back from that place, and he's like, I know what's gonna make her really mad, so she'll stop crying. I'm just gonna
liquor.
lick her. It's gonna work. So,
It is very Faye. I know
it's
we've said that so many times, but it just is
it's
so
so
Faye.
Fae. It's so Fae. Yeah. I don't know if there's too much else to go deep dive into.
No, I mean, I think we touched a little bit on like the summer court person trying to get away and
Mhm.
Reese. I think there's something with that and like knowing that like because there's a point where there seems to be like an understanding between the like new leader of the summer court and Reese, correct? Like there's
Oh
some sort
yeah.
of like exchange
They
there,
look
which
at
I
each
find
other.
interesting.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. We don't know like what their previous bonds are. We have no context of summer court. Really, all we know is a little bit about the autumn, spring, and then whatever Tamlin told us about the
The
night
night court.
court. We don't have context about the other courts in terms of cultural or personality wise. So, but he is new, so that's kind of interesting. He's the
Yes.
new. He's a
The
new guy.
new High Lord. But yeah, so it's that also again it plays into like just Rhysand is a monster. He's a bad guy. He does bad things. He killed the guy.
Yeah.
Just flexed his hand. He did the hand flex.
The Pride and Prejudice hand flex,
But he killed
but like
someone instead.
more murdery and like less, like
Less
kissy.
swoony, more murdery.
I mean, depending on your taste in books, that for some people that's swoon worthy. Depending.
Oh, I won't comment. Not
I've read some.
mine. That is not my idea of swoon-worthy.
I'm not necessarily saying it's mine either, but I have read some pretty dark romances, so it's a very popular genre.
Yeah, I'm sunshine and rainbows and puppies, you know.
We learned this very quickly in
In
book
book
club.
club.
Because I would say that some of us, mostly like two of us, had a slightly darker tendency, and the others were more like sunshiny. And there was a stretch where we were reading a lot of
Yeah. A lot of
darker
dark
romances.
stuff, and everyone was really casually talking about it, and I was sitting there like, don't say anything. Everyone's gonna make fun of how much of a puppy you are. But I did open my mouth and I did get made fun of. With all the love in the world. Lovely book club.
Yes.
Love everyone.
I promise we were nice. I don't. Well, I probably did make fun of you. I was probably just like, eh. I was
Chloe
just
never
in
made
my.
fun of me.
I
Never.
understood preferences. I also wasn't like a huge like. I will read dark romance. That is not what I want in life. But for me, that is like a version of fantasy that's never going to come to fruition or reality.
Hmm.
It just is its own. Like how Fast and Furious is its own universe and has its own physics.
That's a
That is
great
what I.
example.
That's how I consider those books. Also, I know this is a sidebar, but if I could live in any fantasy world, it would be the Fast and Furious franchise.
Really?
Yes.
I feel like we need to unpack that.
Just as a tidbit about my
Why?
life.
Tell me. I love that franchise, but tell me more.
Because I love them so much. And it's also like I can still stay human and they're not really like they're in a war, but they're always guaranteed to win,
Hmm.
pretty much.
They get to
And also
cool stuff with cars.
the cool stuff with cars, things explode. Also, everyone in those movies are very pretty. And you're around a lot of really pretty people doing really attractive things.
Yeah,
And I want to be one of those pretty people driving fast cars. Also, I
that's
don't know how
fair.
to drive a stick shift, so I feel like in this universe I would know how to do that.
That's a great point. Oh no, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, what I was gonna say is Joel, my husband Joel,
Mhm.
hates Charlize Theron so much.
Why?
And I will say, like, I have a lot of like my brother hates Sandra Bullock so much, and I again why
Those
I
are
don't
such
know. I don't
random
know
people
why.
to hate.
But I
They're like
will
two of my
say
favorites.
I don't know why. I don't know why.
Okay.
But Joel's critique of Charlize Theron is that she makes the same stupid face anytime she's trying to do any sort of serious role. And he was like, "What are you talking about? She's an incredible actress, blah, blah, blah." And then I saw her as the villain in Fast and Furious, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh my God." All the love to Charlize Theron out there. I get what they were trying to do. I get what she was trying to do. I did not believe her as a super hacker. All she did was, like with her like.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, no. It's like they could have made her cooler. They could have made her a better villain. But I was like, I get it now, Joel. I get it.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree with
sorry,
you.
Charlize. I think you're lovely.
I love her. I do get where he's coming from. I also don't care.
Ooh. Yeah, I want more unhinged villains.
That is personally my favorite. Amaranth's just a tidbit really close to unhinged, but she's got too much motivation. I
Hmm.
want the unhinged to the point that they have no rhyme or reason. They just think it's entertaining.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
I agree. Bringing it back to Amarantha, bringing it back to our subject material. Um, She just we'll have to get our friend Frank on to give his thoughts on Amarantha
ooh,
at some point.
yeah.
Maybe when I'm visiting in like 2 weeks.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
um what he said was she's the most anticlimactic villain that he's ever met. And I honestly think it's like the Charlize Theron syndrome, where it's like she's
Yeah.
played up, she's literally haunting Farrah's nightmares for months. Farrah has
Hmm.
these dreams about this evil woman, like doing all of these horrible things to her. And then, like, you meet her, and she's kind of just like a petty high school mean girl with terrifying fairy powers.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Her motivation, I think, is a little bit takeover, but it was truly like, I want to be prom queen.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like when in the Vampire Diaries, when they introduce the character of Rebecca Michelson,
Yes.
right? Because then, like,
Yes.
she has a great redemption arc. I love her so much, honestly. Like, in the originals, she's one of my favorite characters.
By far.
But when she, like, enters the scene, she's like this extremely powerful, incredibly intelligent, like, badass villain who's a little
Mhm.
evil, who just wants to be queen and date the quarterback, basically.
That's all she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I remember thinking, I get the like vibe of what like Sarah I think was going for. I don't think she missed the mark because I think it was kind of what she was wanting.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree in terms of like I was expecting some sort of like I don't know, kind of like a snake like person,
Mm-hmm.
not an actual snake like person, but like a viper type person. I would
Mm-hmm.
say Marantha's not a viper; she's more of like a fox
Yeah,
kind of thing.
agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed. Okay, I think we're done with the deep dive.
I would agree.
Um, okay. I don't believe we have a lot for our daddy issues segment.
Not anymore. I mean,
The
Amarantha clearly has. I think Amarantha
Yeah,
has mommy issues.
mhm,
Honestly, she is the personification of mommy
she
issues.
is. You're right. I was gonna say the only thing I would say is that she definitely has parental issues, at least.
Yeah,
Um, and she probably has some weird daddy type issues with like Hybern, King of Hybern.
yeah. I think she's got weird like stepdad issues,
Hmm.
which I feel like is different,
It is.
and like mommy issues. Clearly, with her like weird attachment to Tamlin, there's something
Hmm.
like emotionally not correct
Yeah,
there. But yeah, she's
agreed.
really the only character. But we don't get like we don't really get any like daddy sob story
Mm-mm.
situations. This is kind of one of those things where I think we can assume
We can
that
assume.
all of these characters have daddy issues. We could even probably assume that Reese has some
Oh,
at this point
definitely.
with how he's behaving.
Absolutely. He is a sexiest man alive, intriguing, Gaston child, man child,
He he is
whose motivations are very questionable.
questionable and don't seem consistent.
Mm-mm.
Because like in theory, he's saving Farrah's life. I know we were talking about this, saving Farrah's life, but then kills that other person. Like it's not like
It
does he just
doesn't
not kill women?
match. Yeah, I
But
don't
he let
know.
Claire die. So like it's not consistent.
Yeah, why?
What are morals? So yeah, I would agree. There's not really a lot in the daddy issues section.
Let's see. Beauty and the Beast comparisons. We've talked about this already. There are none.
They're gone now. They're like I'm sure there's probably some light ones, and I've also never read the original fairy tale of Beauty and the Beast, so I don't necessarily know. I'm sure they're not fighting a worm, but maybe there's some more aggressive. I know the older like kind of grim style fairy tales are more
Yeah,
aggressive, but
they are. And then I guess we can kind of jump into Tam Tam is dumb and Farrah is dumb.
uh-huh.
Which one would you like to do first? We don't get a lot of Tamlin in this, actually.
Well, so I think that's the Tamlin is dumb part of this, right?
Is
Like,
that we
which I
just don't get
understand.
anything from him?
No, well, so and I understand that like he's with Amarantha seemingly this whole time, but so is Reese supposed to be. Like Reese is supposed to be her like paramour
Hmm.
kind of person, but he somehow finds a way
Right.
to get away and do these things. So it seems, and like Lucian does. I mean, Lucian
Lucian
literally got
risks his life several times.
several times, and Tamlin. I understand that Tamlin is trying to not. I think every time I have read this, I know what's going through Tamlin's head is I can't acknowledge her, it's gonna make it worse. I can't acknowledge her, it's gonna make it worse. It's already bad.
Yeah.
It can't be worse at this point.
Truly, all she needs from you is just like a little bit of like, I know that you're doing this for me. I love you. Thank you. Just a little bit.
Well, like at this point, if I was Farah, right? This is where like the dum dum part of it in my brain. If I was Farah and like this man supposedly said he loved me, did all of these things, and then I learned this was the part this kind of bleeds into Farah's dumb for
Farrah's
me.
dumb dumb.
Because it kind of is connected. Because I remember thinking this at this point. So you learn that he supposedly really only fell in love with you because of a bargain that he
Hmm.
had to do.
Hmm.
So I think at this point it would very much be questioning: did I risk my life
Right. For
for somebody
nothing.
that only pretended to love me and actually doesn't love me and only was trying to manipulate me into saying that manipulate's not the right word. I don't necessarily think that that was fully what he was doing, but kind of. I mean, especially with him not ever addressing her,
Hmm.
I think it would feel like to me that he was just like trying to get me to say the words and then he was just going to go off and leave me, and I would be no different than any of the children of the blessed
Yeah,
at
honestly.
this point.
Honestly.
So
Small tidbit to add to Vera is Dum Dum because these two segments have now been combined. Still doesn't know what the answer to the riddle is.
I understand that she is not classically educated, but like this was orally recited to her. It's not like it was written down where she couldn't read it. She's shown that she's very intelligent and very
Mhm.
capable. But for now,
We still don't know what the answer is.
I mean, we know what it is, but we don't know what it
We
is.
don't
I
know,
don't know.
officially don't know what it is.
We don't officially, and we will not spoil it. I remember I was on the camp of like, I know what it is, but it can't be that simple,
Hmm.
which is what I assumed was the route that Pharaoh was going to go, but she didn't even have an idea.
No, she had no idea. She literally, at some point while she's like mulling it over, she's like, well, my mom died of typhus or whatever her mom died of. Is it some sort of disease? And I'm like, no, no, stop being so literal.
It felt all, I don't know, almost out of character, but I guess I'm assuming it's supposed to be leaning into her like lack of education and truly like how neglected she was, that
Yeah.
she, and like her lack of confidence at this point. Like I think if she was given some confidence boost, I think she could figure it out and would be fine, but I think she just feels, honestly rightfully so, a little stupid going under this mountain as a human for someone that's not addressing her
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point.
I think we should introduce a new segment here. Feyre is intelligent.
Oh, the whole Midgard worm thing.
Extremely. The Midgard worm, she is literally fighting and running for her life. She realizes the worm can't see, and so she covers herself in mud so that it can't smell her. She builds a ladder out of bones. She lures,
Yes.
like, that whole thing, absolutely brilliant. I would have died. Just died.
Oh, I wouldn't have even tried. I don't think. I think I would have said, "Take me away." The moment I saw that thing, I'd be like, "I'm
So
good.
I'm done.
I'll join the bone pile."
Bye.
Like I am not Feyre. Like that's also probably why I don't want to live in some of these universes. I am not the like. I don't have that main character syndrome of like I have to fight. I probably would try to fight a little bit. I would not be successful.
Yeah, no, I always joke that, like, in a zombie apocalypse situation, I am the person that gets bitten but dies before the movie starts. Like, I'm the
Oh,
person before the first person. I have already died
hmm,
before the movie
same. Well,
starts.
we can be zombies together. Cause
Great.
same. I am
Great.
not gonna last long. I don't want to be honest.
Mm-mm.
Post-apocalyptic, I don't want to be there.
Yeah, I'm good.
I have no desire. I'm real good. I would rather die.
Yeah.
Like, I was not built that way.
No, me neither. Um, okay, other ways that she's really intelligent. I mean, we see her. I think it's like her instinct for survival. She's about to die.
Hmm.
Honestly, honestly speaking, if Rhysand had come into my cell and I knew that I was gonna die from infection, I would have been like, fine, 2 weeks, I'll figure it out later.
Yes, the fact that
Farah
she has
has, yeah, go
the
ahead.
presence of mind. Sorry, yeah, the presence of mind to be like, I'm gonna bargain this down. The presence of mind and like kind of understand that she doesn't really hold all the cards. Like she holds no cards,
Yeah,
but she has some because it does definitely seem like she's the key to getting out of here, and Reese
wants to get
desperately
out.
wants to leave.
Yeah.
So like understanding that like she has probably more leverage than I think most. I think Reese understood that she got that part.
Hmm.
That she has a lot more leverage than like he wouldn't have offered if there wasn't a reason or
Yep.
something in it for him.
Agreed. So
Mhm.
I just thought, yeah, bravo, Farah. Just 10 out of 10 in so many departments.
Mhm.
I think we've discussed enough the departments where that does not stand.
Bless her. Closing thoughts. This is like my favorite chunk of this book. This section by far. Like this is the part where like when people get to it, I'm like, oh, you're there.
Yeah. No, I
Like
would
by far.
agree. So it gets so interesting, especially like now that we've read it so many times, I'm rereading it and I'm
Hmm.
still picking up on things that I'm like, oh my God, brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
so good. How did she go from it makes me wonder, Sarah, question for you. Did you think of the Beauty and the Beast thing first, or did you think of this whole scene under the mountain first? Like, I'm so curious.
Ooh. Sarah, we know you're watching. Please respond.
We
Thank
know you're watching.
we know you definitely are watching a thing about a book series that you're still actively writing.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I actually don't think she can. That's a whole thing legally. Because if technically she takes any of our ideas and puts it in a book, it can be a copyright issue.
Oh,
So most authors don't actively look at things like this or like fan fiction and different things while they're actively writing it. I don't remember who was it. Katie Roberts. I can't remember who. I think it was Katie Roberts. I follow her on TikTok. It's a different author I follow. She's wonderful also. That like talked about it because people were curious.
very interesting. Anyways, Sarah, we want to know
Sarah.
which one came first. Was it Beauty and the Beast or was it Under the Mountain? I will say I'm currently writing a book, and the process has been very enlightening for me. I had an idea like 2 years ago. I made Colleen
Mm-hmm.
read the first 9 pages I ever wrote, and then I didn't do anything for another year and a half.
Mm-hmm. The first 9 pages were great.
Thanks. They've changed now, but
I figured.
but I had the idea, I had like a loose idea of what I wanted the book to be. And then in the past like few weeks, I've been talking through and outlining and bouncing ideas off with my husband to get all of the outline and the ideas teased out and stuff. And it's definitely changed a whole lot. But I came up with some ideas that you're not gonna realize are happening in the beginning first. And then I worked my way backwards a little bit for a lot of them, for like how that was well, what do I need to do to get it to play out that way? So I want to know what the process is for you, Sarah.
I am intrigued because I do feel like there is so much more foreshadowing earlier on in the book than I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Like doing this like discussion thing definitely made me like pay attention to those more. So I don't know if it was like she came up with the Beauty and the Beast idea, figured out the rest of it, and then like went back and incorporated it,
Mm-hmm.
or if it was the other way around. I don't know.
I don't know. Also, if you're listening to this and you too are thinking of writing or you've been writing or whatever, what's your process? Tell us.
Ooh, I would actually love to know. I've never written anything super serious, but I am intrigued.
Yeah. This was a very rambly episode.
Sorry.
It's just it's that one of those kind of days. I've spent all day with my head in a bunch of Excel spreadsheets, and this was a really fun use of my brain because I've been deep in spreadsheets at work, God, all week. It's Tuesday. It's fine. All week.
It's been a long week.
been
This
a
is
long
my
week.
like main processing day because I do payroll just for people's knowledge. We do a weekly payroll, and so every Tuesday is processing day for me. So it's also like my brain day
Yeah.
at work. So
Yep. All right.
I
I
don't know if you're
think
keeping this part in or not.
I
So
don't know. I might.
okay.
I feel like we're at that point now where people want to know more about us. Our
Oh, are you
our
intrigued?
two listeners that we have, one of which is me, want to know more about us.
I want to know more about us. No, we have to believe that eventually we're gonna get really famous,
Mm-hmm.
and people are gonna go back and watch these and be like, "Oh my gosh, they talked about this here."
Yes, yes. And
That's
they're
what this
going to go
lore
back to
happens.
this episode and hear me talking about our two listeners, one of which is me and one of which is you. They're going to think it's real funny too. I bet ya.
Yes, I agree. And then this is our origin story, Orja.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. All right. On that note, folks, I guess we will say goodbye until next week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Hi, me again. I am here to let you all know where to find us. You can find us on Instagram at BookWitchesPod. You can find us on Spotify at BookWitches with a B. You can find us on YouTube at BookWitches with a B, and you can find us on TikTok at BookWitchesPod. All of this information is also going to be listed below our episode, and it's going to be listed in the ending credits if you're watching along with us in the videos. Catch you guys soon!